They created a bubble with all of this cheap money. The housing market, the equity markets, the economies should have crashed in Europe, should have crashed in Australia, should have crashed in the United States. They pumped in unprecedented amounts of cheap money between the central banks lowering interest rates the way they did and the governments flooding in all of this cheap dough. They created a bubble of unprecedented size in modern history. We've seen nothing like this. So what's going to happen? Well, here in the States, the housing prices estimate went up 40% in 2 years. Wait a minute, 40% in 2 years? While businesses are going out of business? How could this happen? All right, so is there going to be a correction? Yes, there's going to be a correction. But think of how high it went. Are you going to see a 40% decline? We don't believe so. But there are the wild cards. And that's why, when people say, I always make it clear, no, nobody could predict the future. We do trend forecasts. There are too many wild cards, whether they're made by nature or humans. So let's look at the two wild cards being played now. And we got to talk about inflation and what's going to wear things. The Ukraine war, crazy wild card. Who would have thought of this would have happened? Oh, three things. And now it's over there in Australia, United States, those lousy Chinese, we got to do everything we can to stop them. Okay. You're going to fight the Chinese? You're going to bring that up now? How dare they take Taiwan? What the hell do I care? This has been going on with the Ming Dynasty in there for how many centuries? Oh, no, we have to stop it. We have to bring freedom and democracy. Oh, yeah, you Australians. Yeah, it wasn't Gallipoli great? Did a terrific job. And now what's going on in the Middle East? Not my words, but from the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, the extreme right-wing government of Netanyahu in Israel. And now they're talking about, will they attack Iran? Okay, attack Iran. Now I'm mentioning all this because of the wild cards. And the wildest of the wild cards is more inflation. And what the inflation number is going to blow up is if there is a military conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. They have protests going on now in Israel every week. Hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets because of the judicial reform they want to do, which basically means there is no judicial anything. The politicians are in full control. So the people are taking to the streets. One of my sayings is when all else fails, they take you to war. If there's a military conflict, you're going to see oil prices, Brent crude, go to above $130 a barrel, US dollars. That will crash the economies and it will crash equity markets, housing markets. It will bring everything down big time. So we don't know where that's going to go. The same thing with the Ukraine war. If this thing continues to escalate, energy prices are going to keep going up. So will there be a housing? Yes, the housing's definitely going to go down. But the bigger one in the States is the commercial office sector. We have an occupancy rate, according to Castle, 50.4% office occupancy rate. Wait a minute. Half the people are going back to work than before the COVID war? Yeah, that's right. How about all the businesses that depended on commuters going out of business? A third of the dry cleaners are dried up, gone. Now look at the hotels that used to have business travel. Business travel has not come back. It's not going to come back. And the office sector, building sector was already overbuilt before all this happened. Now let's go back to you talking about raising interest rates. Oh, now you got to pay more on those variable rate loans while you have less tenants. You are going to see a crash. It's an office building bust that the mainstream media is now just barely talking about, that we warned about 3 years ago. That's the one to keep your eye on big. In the States, yes, we're going to see a decline. New mortgage applications in America just hit a 28-year low. Now you're going to raise interest rates. Mortgage rates are going to go up. That's going to keep going down. But here's the difference. When we had the bust that happened with the panic of '08, we had the subprime mortgages, the bankster gangsters. Hey, you don't have a job? You're deep in debt? Don't worry about it. Here, sign over here and you can buy a house. That didn't happen this time. So yes, you're going to see a sell-off. But we don't see a bust in the States yet. As I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. They get your minds right off it. What followed the Great Depression? What followed the dot-com bust? The war on terror. Our magazine, the Trends Journal, in October 1999, we had forecast dot-com bust by the second quarter of 2000. And it did. Busted in March of 2000. The NASDAQ was down like, some 60-something% before 9/11. We're going into a steep recession. 9/11 happens. You got a little clown of a nobody boy, a daddy's boy born on third base. George W. Bush. We're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden dead or alive. 88% of the people swallowed the crap coming out of that clown's mouth. Forgot all about the dot-com bust. And then they created next bubble with the housing market and the derivative scam. They're going to do the same thing now. You go to war, it brings profits up. People get their minds off it. And I believe that's what they're doing. They keep selling war, and it gets the people's minds off of the problems that are existing.
People are talking about inflation. I think we're in depression right now. And we're going to be the biggest depression in world history. Because the Fed can't not keep printing money and hope it stays afloat, because the shadow banking system, or called the euro dollar system, is 1,000 times bigger than the Fed. So we're going down either way, whatever's going to happen.
I hope I'm wrong. We're going to go bankrupt. There'll probably be a new conference like the Louvre Accord or the Smithsonian Accord, and they're going to rewrite the rules of the game again. They're going to say, okay, the US dollar, you're toast, and IMF's going to jump in, China's going to jump in. But meanwhile, you and I, if you're holding dollars, you might be in serious trouble.
The dominoes are falling. This is retirement fund giant CalPERS. I think it's the biggest pension fund in America is going broke. Now, that means firefighters, school teachers, public servants, they're all toast. They're all like my poor dad. They're going to find out the government screwed them. They trusted their pension would be there, and it's going to go bust. The biggest bust in the history of the world is coming up. It's pensions. It's a big, big market because they're into everything. They're into all the buildings and REITs and bonds and all this stuff. Pensions are everywhere. So this is the most important program. If you're a baby boomer or if you have parents who are baby boomers, watch this program.
My concern is it is the end of the American empire. And very simply is because our Federal Reserve Bank, our Treasury, and our government has messed up the US dollar so much that they have to find a way to keep people happy. And so they want to just, quote unquote, print money, which they are doing. So just remember this, that money comes from production. And when we pay people not to produce, we're just paying them not to revolt. And that's what happened during the Roman times. And what happened at the end of the Roman Empire, the leaders of Rome debased the currency. They were taking silver coins and gold coins, they were filing them and melting them and doing all these goofy things. They were fighting wars, we're still fighting wars, and they started taxing the worker. And back in Roman times, the worker was the farmer or the yeoman. And so that's why I say it's the end of the American empire, because our money is corrupt. Now, would I take the money? Absolutely. We're talking about it. Don't fight the government. Don't fight the Fed. Don't fight politics. If they're going to give me $1,000, I'll take it, but I would convert it into either gold, silver, or Bitcoin.
Going back to what can you do? Like if my poor dad, when he lost his pension because he ran for lieutenant governor as a Republican, he didn't know what to do. At 50 years old, he found out his PhD didn't help him at all. So that's kind of why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. My family got so upset with me. How dare you call your father a PhD? How are you going to call him poor? Because the facts are he was broke. At 50, there was nothing on his he didn't know what a financial statement is.
I didn't think it was going to get this bad. So it's gotten a lot worse than I imagined. So is it going to get worse? Possibly. But I'm preparing for it, not, hiding in a bunker, if you know what I mean. We can counter communism taught in schools by teaching capitalism in our homes. And see, that's where I learned about capitalism. I learned about capitalism at home, not at school. I learned communism at school. But the media is now completely, as you know, on the dark side. I am fighting for capitalism because capitalism is about freedom. You can be a communist if you want, but don't take my freedom away. So what's going on with the Fed? The Fed has got no power. There's the European shadow bank system. It's got more power. But the Fed, what they're trying to get us to believe is that there's inflation. It's really what's happening is we're in depression. I talk about gold, silver, Bitcoin, not because I'm a gold, silver, Bitcoin fan. I just don't trust the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. I buy stuff that's outside their system. I think people should pay attention. That's why I love YouTube, because I get real teachers, a lot of them are fakes. But this is the enemy here. It says $10 billion. Zimbabwe. I want people to see this because this is the future of the dollar. If you understand that, that's why they're paying people not to work. They just printed $10 trillion to prevent the economy from collapsing. What's happening is Jay Powell of the Fed is trying to push the yield curve up. But as most of you know, the real yield curve is the euro dollar curve. It's not the Fed curve. And the euro dollar curve went inverted. Now, every time that has happened, tragedy follows. So that's why I think the Fed is toast.